Imagine the scene. A home that looked like a safe haven collapsed in seconds when the husband crosses the door with his mother's bags. The phrase that echoes like a sentence, "It's over, my mother comes to live here, I got tired of this bad food," hit the wife like a punch in the stomach. Years of dedication, to try to please everyone, and behold, your life is decided without even an appointment. But this woman is not the kind that swallows humiliations in silence. And it is this story of resistance and boundaries that Andre Branco, bring you today on the Entrelated Almas channel. Listen carefully, because what comes next is more than one account, it's a mirror for many realities. The aroma of the beets broth filled the kitchen when Olga heard the familiar noise of the keys in the lock. Igor arrived early, and by the weight of the steps in the corridor, she knew something was not going well. 3 years of marriage made her expert in deciphering her husband's mood even before he crossed the door. "Hi," she said, without turning around as she moved the pan. "Dinner is almost done." Igor passed straight, opened the fridge with a sudden tug and pulled a beer, knocking the door tightly. The snap echoed like a warning. Olga felt the body tension. That gesture never preceded good news. "His mother again complaining about loneliness," muttered Igor, twisting the lid of the bottle with anger. "He says he can't stand living alone in that apartment anymore." Olga kept stirring the broth, but the spoon seemed to weigh a ton. Ludmila Stanislavovna, the mother-in-law, had her own life in a 2-bedroom apartment in the neighboring neighborhood. In the last 6 months, however, the tips on how it would be convenient to move to the son's house, especially after Olga inherited a 3-bedroom apartment in the center, they had become increasingly frequent. "Igor, we've talked about it," replied Olga, softly, but firm. "Your mother has your home, your routines. We still have no children, the space is ours, and only ours." Igor crushed the bottle on the table so hard that the foam has gathered over the towel. 3 bedrooms for 2. Is that little? Is my mother keeps squeezing in 40 square meters while you both swim in luxury? Olga finally turned. The husband's face was red, his eyes shining with irritation, that same look that appeared every time the subject was the mother. For Igor, Ludmila was untouchable, a saint who created him alone after divorce. Denying anything to her was like blaspheming. "Your mother is not squeezing," argued Olga, cautiously. "She has a good apartment, a good retirement, friends around. Why change a life organized for? Because she's my mother." Igor exploded. "And if I can give her something better, it's my duty to do it. Point." Olga felt that family emptiness in her chest, the same impotence as usual. Each discussion about the mother-in-law became a monologue about branch duties, as if her desires or the impact on her life didn't even exist. "Okay," said Olga, turning off the fire. "Let's talk calmly, but remember, this house is mine, inherited from my grandmother. I have a voice here too." Igor's face darkened. He hated when she remembered that the apartment was hers. "Yours, is it?" He spat between the teeth. "And isn't we a family? Or do you see me like a passing tenant? Don't overdo it. I just want the decision to be ours, not just yours." Igor swallowed the rest of the beer from a sip and threw the bottle in the dump. "Wrong." The glass shattered on the floor. "Do you know something?" he said, already heading for the departure. "I got tired of asking permission. My mother comes to live here, and if you don't like it, get somewhere else." The door knocked, leaving Olga alone with a broth that suddenly gave her nausea. She collected the shards, cleared the spilled beer and sat at the table, trying to understand how everything had come that point. Igor had never been so radical, but the influence of his mother grew. Like a shadow. The next day, while Olga worked, he put the plan into practice. Arriving home at night, he came across 3 bags and 2 bags at the entrance. Ludmila Stanislavovna was at the kitchen table, sipping tea from the best porcelain set in Olga while examining the apartment with an air of those who evaluate a property for sale. "Ah, Olga, you arrived," said the mother-in-law, without even getting up. "Igor told me that you finally agreed to receive me. I kindly yours." Olga stopped at the door, feeling an intruder in his own house. Igor avoided his gaze, serving dinner with trembling hands. "I put my things in the middle room," Ludmila continued, as if I were talking about time. "I hope you don't mind. There the light is better." And the space is ideal for my furniture. What a furniture? Asked Olga, the cold voice. Well, my dear, I can't live without my things. Tomorrow bring my wardrobe, the dresser, and the armchair. Oh, and their things have already been taken from there. Igor kept everything in the pantry. The middle room. That room. Where Olga had set up his craft studio, his refuge. Now their materials were huddled between brooms and cleaning products. Igor, she called, the tremendous voice of anger contained. He followed her to the fourth grudgingly. As soon as the door closed, Olga didn't follow anymore. Did you lose your head? I brought your mother without consulting me, threw my things away, didn't even warn me. I warned, Igor shrugged. You just didn't take it seriously. That was an ultimatum, not a conversation. Call what you want. The important thing is that my mother will no longer suffer alone. Olga sank in bed, realizing the naked and raw truth. The decision was already made for a long time. The discussion of the day before only theater. And now? Should she accept that another woman dictate the rules in her own home? In our house, Igor corrected, as if he read his thoughts. And she's not dictating anything, just living. In fact, she already complained about her noise. He said that yesterday's borscht was too salty. She didn't even thank dinner. Thank you for? Cooking for the family is your obligation. Olga looked at him incredulously. In 3 years, Igor had changed. Of the man who swore to love her above all, now he was an obedient son, willing to sacrifice marriage on his mother's altar. The following days were a martyrdom. Ludmila acted as the owner of the piece, rerouted furniture, criticized cleaning, changed routines. Every morning Olga was received with acidic comments: this coffee is too strong, this bread is hard, this blouse is not suitable for work. Igor always loved porridge in the morning, said the mother-in-law on the third day, as if it were a divine revelation. Not your cheese sandwiches. He never complained, Olga countered. Because I am polite. But I, as a mother, know what he likes. And Igor, who a week before he said he hated porridge since he was a child, now ate him silently, nodding every mother's criticism and ignoring her wife's hurt look. The fuse came that same night. Olga prepared dinner when Ludmila entered the kitchen with a grimace. What is this smell? He twisted his nose. Chicken stew with vegetables. What a disgust. Igor hates stewed food from a young age. It hurts you to your stomach. Funny, answered Olga, drying his hands on the cloth. He eats it for years and never complained. Because it is well educated, said the mother-in-law, as if it were obvious. But now that I'm here, things will change. It was the drop of water. Olga dropped the spoon and stared at the woman who had turned her home upside down within a few days. This time, there would be no retreat. Unlike some people, Ludmila Stanislavovna opened the refrigerator with the familiarity of those who already felt owned the place. Better to do meatballs. There's meat, onion I think here too. Olga froze, the spoon still suspended on the pan. I already started preparing the chicken. So what? The mother-in-law turned with a gesture of impatience, as if it explained the obvious to a child. Play this lick out and make decent food. It was then that something inside Olga snapped. It was not just the humiliation of having his effort discarded as garbage, nor the tone of superiority with which Ludmila spoke, it was the certainty that if he gave in this time, he would never have a voice in his own home. He turned off the fire with a dry click and turned, his eyes burning with a determination that he even recognized herself. Do you know something, Ludmila Stanislavovna? His voice was calm, but each syllable cut the air like a blade. If my food is not good, you turn yourself. The mother-in-law widened her eyes, offended. What do you mean? Should I serve my son's house? Olga corrected with a cold smile, in my house. And before the other could react, he added, and if nothing pleases him, the door is open. No one forced her to stay. The silence that followed was broken by Igor's entrance. A look was enough for him to understand. The storm that had been forming for days had finally broken. What is happening? Her voice trembled between worry and fear of having to choose one side. Ludmila wasted no time. Instantly, his eyes filled with manufactured tears, and his chin shivered. Your son. She's expelting me. Igor turned to Olga, his face is a mask of unbelief. Mom, this is not true, Olga replied, exhausted. I said that if she doesn't like anything here, she can go back to her apartment. Igor stared at her as if she had suggested leaving a puppy in the rain. Olga, how can you be so cruel? My mother has just moved, is adapting, and you start with these scandals. Scandals. The word echoed in his head as an insult. I start. Olga laughed without humor. Your mother spends the last 3 days disassembling everything I do. Criticize my food, my cleaning, even the way you doubled the towels. Igor opened her mouth to protest, but she cut. She doesn't want to help, Igor. She wants to send. Ludmila sobbed louder, as if confirmed the accusation. Son, she doesn't respect me. You don't know what it is to be a good housewife. It was the gout. Igor exploded. He threw the keys to the table with a crash that made the cutlery tremble. Enough. My mother leaves here now. Olga looked at him as if she saw a stranger. It was not the man with whom he had married, he who swore hated conflicts, who promised to protect her even from the shadows. He was a frightened son, willing to sacrifice his own marriage on the altar of maternal guilt. Ludmila, pleased, he anchors with her head, watching the scene as a queen who finally sees her subject bend. Olga said nothing more. There were no words for that moment. He turned and left the kitchen, his heart beating so strong that he drowned out his mother-in-law's theatrical hiccups and Igor's screams. In the loneliness of the room, as she arranged a suitcase with hands that they didn't train, she knew there would be no return. Not this time. In the morning, while the two had coffee in the kitchen, Ludmila already recovered from the trauma, Igor with dark nightclubs, Olga left without a noise. It took only the essentials, documents, the wedding ring, which would play in the first trash he saw, and the jewelry he had inherited from his grandmother. The rest, I could seek later. Or not. At the entrance table, he left a letter. Igor, since my poor food disgusts you, will no longer need to swallow it. The house is mine by inheritance, you have 3 days to leave. Divorce papers arrive by mail. Next to the letter, 3 cans of sardines in cheap sauce, each with a post-it, not to starve. The keys of the house shone over the paper, like an end point. When Igor read the letter, it was late. Olga had blocked all his contacts. The first messages were pathetic. Sorry, love. Let's talk. I promised to talk to the mother. She didn't answer. I knew that if I came back, it would be to repeat the same scry. PT, with Ludmila in the role of director and Igor as her puppet. A week later, the tone changed. You are destroying our family for nonsense. Mother are right. You are ungrateful. Olga smiled as she read. Ungrateful? Has she, who had opened the doors of her house, who had swallowed humiliations in silence for months? He hung up the phone and blocked to the mother-in-law number. A month later, her friend Lisa told the epilogue she already suspected. Ludmila never intended to help with household chores. His plan was simple, installing as the undisputed matriarch, while Olga would assume the role of free maid. When it was clear that the daughter-in-law would not return, hell settled between mother and son. You ruined everything with your criticism, Igor shouted. You didn't know how to hold your wife. Ludmila retaliated. The divorce was fast. Igor tried to complain about the house, but Olga's lawyer clarified with a courteous smile. Inheritance is not quite common, dear. Take your shirts and half the old car. Ludmila returned to her apartment and found the roof of the room collapsing, thanks to a leakage of the neighbors from above. With no money for repair, he began to live between boxes and plastic canvas. Igor, in turn, found that renting a decent place in Moscow with his programmer salary was a luxury. It ended in a tiny studio on the periphery, where the smell of mold vied for space with despair. Ludmila demanded that he take her to live with him, but in 20 square meters did not fit 2 wounded egos. This is all the fault of her stubbornness, she shouted. You didn't know how to behave. He spits back. The neighbors learned the details of each fight for the volume of the voices that crossed the fine walls. 2 years later, Olga married again. This time, with Dennis, an architect who not only cooked but fell asleep their newborn daughter in their arms as she took a hot shower. When Igor saw her wedding photos on social networks, radiant Olga, Dennis looking at her as if she was the only woman in the world tried to send her a message. We need to talk. I understood everything. It gives me a chance. The system reported that he was blocked. Through a common friend, Olga sent a message, I wish him. But in my life there is no more space for men who confuse love with servitude. And while Igor was still trying to understand how he had exchanged a woman who loved him for a mother who only knew how to charge, Olga taught her daughter to hold a spoon. Never, never, let them make you feel small in your own kitchen, he whispered, while the girl laughed, with dirty fingers of mashed potatoes. Igor has never seen care with his daughter as a mother's exclusive obligation, much less like a gift he gave. But while changing an apartment for the third time in 2 years, he realized that his love life had become a desert. The women who crossed their way soon understood, he did not seek a mate, but a maid with a girlfriend diploma. And one by one, they disappeared. Meanwhile, Ludmila Stanislavovna got sick severely. Cancer left her fragile, dependent, and Igor, with no alternative, took her to live with him. The house that should be his refuge has become a makeshift hospital, and he, in the role of nurse of an eternal patient and eternally dissatisfied. Look at what you have reduced me, she squeaked in bed, with a tone between the accusation and the disdain. If it wasn't for you, Olga would be here. She should take care of me. Igor exchanged the sheets in silence, the trembling fingers of tiredness. Mom, Olga was my wife, not her caregiver, he said, without strength to argue. So what? A real wife helps her husband's family. He swallowed the words, knowing that he would never hear an apology. May it never hear, even the recognition that it had been driving out the only woman who had truly loved him. But it was in the dawn. Das alone in the kitchen of the rented apartment, forgetting to eat while warming a frozen plate in the microwave, which the truth hit him like a knife. He had not only lost someone who cooked or tidied up the house. She had lost her, the woman who laughed at her bad puns, who planned trips to a future that would never arrive, who kissed him as if the world would end tomorrow. Had it changed all this? For a mother who treated him like an ungrateful servant. 4 clear nights listening to complaints that never ended. For the loneliness that now accompanied him like a shadow. Olga, however, never regretted that night. The box with canned cans became a legend in the family. Dennis loved to tell the story to friends, her eyes shining with pride. Imagine, she did not do drama, did not cry, did not plead. He took her things, left the cans with a note and left. It is class. A way out of a man who did not even deserve the crumbs of what she offered. And the daughter, growing slowly, listened to that story like a modern fairy tale where the princess does not expect a prince, but builds her own happy ending. Mom was brave, he said, a voice full of admiration. And Olga smiled, because he knew, courage was not leaving. It was starting over. And every day, seeing her daughter hold a pencil, a book, or, who knows, a spoon, she repeated softly, like a mantra, never, my daughter. Never let them make you choose between being happy and being small.